Hall. So we first brought you this story as breaking news last night, and let's just say things have changed dramatically in the last 24 hours.
We're going to tell you about all those details in just a moment, but first let's talk about why this matters so much to our area. Number one is the jobs. The new FBI headquarters is expected to bring about 2,000 jobs to the area. Also, more than 7,000 FBI employees at the current headquarters in D.C. will move to the new location.
Second, economic growth. Officials believe this new location will bring in more than $4 billion in economic activity.
And lastly, equity. Leaders in Prince George's County say more federal money and projects over the years have gone to Fairfax County. They feel this decision helps them get their fair share of federal government investments. All right,
so again, a lot has happened over the last 24 hours, so let's get you up to speed on where things stand right now. Last night, we told you the headquarters were moving from D.C. to Greenbelt, Maryland. That's in Prince George's County.
But now it looks like that future is less than certain. The governor of Virginia, both senators, and a bipartisan group of congressional representatives are demanding the decision should be immediately overturned. We've got team coverage tonight from D.C. to Maryland and Virginia.
Yeah, let's start with our Adam Longo now. And Adam, you just got your hands on a new report, and it's raising a lot of eyebrows, right?
Indeed it is. So let's discuss why Virginia politicians are so upset about what's inside this 38-page report that I was given by one of my sources on Capitol Hill. And we got to talk about why the FBI director himself took the rather astonishing step of calling out this Biden administration decision. Here's why. An unprecedented letter this morning from FBI Director Christopher Wray to all FBI employees. In the letter, Director Wray highlights concerns about fairness and transparency in the process that ultimately awarded the new FBI headquarters project to Greenbelt, Maryland in Prince George's County. There was a 3-person panel made up of 2 people from the GSA and 1 from the FBI who were in charge of deciding where the new FBI headquarters should go.
You had a 3-member panel empowered to analyze the sites under the revised criteria, and they unanimously recommended Virginia. It should go to Virginia. Period. It should go to Virginia.
Instead, a political appointee from the GSA named Nina Albert, who's now with Mayor Bowser's administration, she overruled the 3-person panel, according to these GSA documents reviewed by WUSA 9, and the FBI headquarters was awarded to Greenbelt instead.
The FBI was concerned enough about this tie that they raised it with the administration again and again and again.
The GSA administrator, Robin Carnahan, a Biden appointee, released this statement today in response to the FBI director's letter. Quote, any suggestion that there was inappropriate interference is unfounded. The choice of Greenbelt, Maryland is fully consistent with the decision-making process as well as all laws, regulations, and ethical considerations. We stand behind the process, the decision, and all of the public servants who carefully followed the process and made a good decision on behalf of the FBI and the public. At every step, the GSA team has worked to incorporate the FBI's feedback and appropriately address their concerns, including conducting a legal review of each concern raised. By the way, Carnahan scheduled to be in front of the House Oversight Committee next Tuesday morning. That's going to be an interesting meeting to be in. And just in here from Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer, who has helped to shepherd this project over the past 14 years. He said, quote, I'm disappointed that Director Wray and my colleagues in the Virginia delegation would call into question the integrity of this process simply because they preferred a different outcome. Now, members of the Virginia delegation are now asking for an Inspector General investigation to try and zero in on any possible malfeasance or even any potentially illegal activity that guys may have influenced this decision.
So this back and forth, they're going to go on for quite a while, it sounds like, Adam.
Yeah, and initially we thought maybe that Virginia was upset about this because they simply wanted it in Virginia. But these pages seem to unearth some different circumstances that still have to be investigated.
Without that letter from the FBI director, they would have just, the Virginia delegation kicked sand and said we lost. But this just brought up a whole litany of things to lead them to believe that the process of deciding on Greenbelt was not fair.
Yeah, worth looking into. All right, Adam, thank you.
Transparency is important.
And as Adam mentioned, we are learning more about a possible conflict of interest in this whole decision-making process.
And it involves a current member of D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's administration. Matthew Torres continues our live team coverage with that part of the story. Matthew?
Hey, Leslie, we know Nina Albert is now D.C.'s Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. As we have been reporting, documents show that she helped approve this Greenbelt location back in late September. That's about 2 weeks before Mayor Muriel Bowser appointed her to this new position. U.S. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia says the person who went against the panel's recommendation to move the headquarters to Springfield was a GSA executive who used to work for WMATA. And on top of our sources, we also looked into Albert's resume. Before heading to D.C. government, Albert was the commissioner of the Public Building Service at GSA. She was quoted in July for getting feedback from Maryland and Virginia delegates about selecting the new site for the FBI headquarters. Before GSA, Albert was the VP of Real Estate and Parking at WMATA. There's questions of conflict of interest since Metro owns the Greenbelt site. Albert replaced former Deputy Mayor John Falcicchio, who's facing sexual harassment allegations. And just a few hours ago, we caught up with Mayor Bowser if she had any concerns.
Director Albert is the Commissioner for Public Buildings for the Biden administration. So if you have any, that was her job then, and I'm sure that she advanced the priorities of the administration. So that any questions that the senators have, they should direct it to the appropriate place.
I could have never dreamed that at the end of this, what we would be talking about is how a person, per the FBI director, basically made this decision and has a conflict of interest. Now we have to ask ourselves a basic ethical question about, was the process even right? I mean, that's just incredible.
Now you're hearing from Fairfax County Chair Jeff McKay, who is fighting to get this location to Springfield. He says this selection process is now corrupt and wants the GSA to look into the other two proposed sites. And although D.C. was not in the running, Mayor Bowser says building on an underutilized Metro site like Greenbelt would be good for the region. Now we have tried to get a hold of Albert to get a comment on this situation. We have yet to hear back. Reporting live outside the Wilson Building, Matthew Torres, WUSA 9.
Yeah, we thought the longest part of this was going to be the actual building of the FBI headquarters. Turns out they've got some other things to navigate on the way to get there.
Let's see when we get there, huh?
All right, of course, we have to talk about how leaders in Maryland are reacting to all of this.
Our Scott Broom is in Greenbelt tonight. And Scott, the big headline from that side of the Potomac is bring it on, right?
Yeah, it was bring it on, and perhaps it's no surprise to you, but there is no leader I spoke to in Maryland today that suggested they're even remotely rattled or undone by all of these allegations that we've laid out in our broadcast here tonight from both FBI Director Wray and Virginia authorities. Equity of economic opportunity has been the theme throughout the day on this side of the Potomac River. Here's how Angela Also Brooks, a county executive here in Prince George's County, who's also running for U.S. Senate in Maryland, reacted to the pushback from Wray and the Virginia leaders.
You know what? We're taxpayers too. We're talking about Northern Virginia in the Fairfax area, which has already received over the last 15 years $460 billion worth of federal dollars in investment. Prince George's County has received $120 billion, so they've received more than 3 times the amount of investment, which has allowed them to become the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest communities in the United States of America. So people don't give over those kinds of opportunities quite easily. They're fighting for their residents, and I'm fighting for mine.
Maryland leaders continued pounding on familiar themes throughout the day today. The Greenbelt site, they say, is cheaper by $500 million or potentially even much more than that. Better oriented to public transit, like the station here at Greenbelt where we're standing tonight, and that site is ready to build on now. Maryland leaders acknowledge that today's disputed GSA decision does not end this. It is all about funding in Congress right now, and obviously with a lot of politics involved, but Maryland leaders here are convinced that with the GSA decision that's been announced, despite all the disputes, that the gravity and the momentum is moving their way, and they're going to get this across the goal line eventually. Reporting live in Greenbelt, Scott Broom, WUSA 9.
It's a reminder of what's at stake here. You're talking about billions of dollars too, you know?
Absolutely. And people and equity, all of these
jobs.
things coming out. Yeah.
All right, Scott, thank you. So we have been all over this story for years now. You can find more reporting and context on the WUSA 9 app and get breaking updates as we learn.